It is, what is today, June 24, and it's 6:33 p.m. We're visiting with Situ, a.k.a. Anna Malavidov Frisby. You have a middle name?
Darlene.
Darlene. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And Garrett Plutnikoff and myself, Aquilina Lestinkoff, are here. And may we record you? Okay. So just for like starters, maybe just share with us your say your full name and how you got your nickname, and talk about your family. Anything you want to say about your family, mother, dad, and so on.
The way you said my name, it brought up a memory of Joe Malavidov. He used to tease me when he see me. He goes, Anna, see to Darlene Malavidov. And then after I got married, he'd say, Anna, see to Darlene Malavidov Frisby. That's a long name. That's when the canteen was around and the grocery store. Be running around there, and that's when I'd see him.
Did he work in the area? Or?
I don't think so, but it's just probably going there around the same
Yeah.
time. Yeah.
I couldn't.
Anytime he saw me, he would always say my name like that. Say I had such a long name.
He used to stand at the door in the church, and that big door to open it. And when the doors, they opened in the middle when we went there. And I used to walk there like, and I knew that when I got there, and if you touch the doorknob, he hears it and he would open it for people. And I would go in and he would say, Hi, Church Debbie.
Church Debbie.
Because Debbie Lukanoff, there was two of us here, so I started to be called Church Debbie by some people, and I used to not like that.
That's funny.
Just stand by the door. Hi, Joe.
Cute.
Yeah, so your parents.
Let me tell you about my name first.
Okay.
So my nickname, C2, my mom told me, I used to hate my nickname when I was little. And but she told me that I was born when my brother was a year old. And so when she brought me home, she was telling him, this is your sister. He couldn't say sister, so it came out C2.
Oh.
So that's how I got my name.
Nice. And you had to live with it and all.
Then I realized after we moved away in 81, it seemed weird when we were in Heidelberg. I didn't hear my nickname anymore. And I thought, I miss my nickname. And then when I come home, for visits, people say, hi, C2. I go, hi. I thought, I learned to appreciate my nickname.
It's a good one.
Yeah.
I don't know anybody else that has it.
Yep. That was my nickname, or it is. There's a very few people in Heidelberg who will say it. Yeah, not too many, just a couple. So that's
like they've
cool.
heard about it.
Yeah. Like in Anchorage, Joe's cousin Tibu, when he see me, he would say that. He remembered. And what was so funny too, Kuka, my grandkids in Heidelberg would say, Kuka. And these two little girls, they played with Latasha and them. And one day they saw me. There was no grandkids there then, and they were passing me. I was walking. They're on their bikes, and they go, "Hi, Cuckoo." It just made me laugh. I go, "Hi." They thought they had it. Hey, Cuckoo. They were all happy. I thought that was so cute.
You were born in St. George.
Yeah, I was born in St. George. My brother was born in 54. I was born in 55. And so my parents got married up here. My mom is from St. George and my dad from here. It's sad. I don't know how they met, but yeah. And they were living in St. George. I remember living over there, preschool, before I ever went to school. And back when I went to school, there was no kindergarten. We started at first grade. And we moved over here before I started first grade. And I remember, I don't remember the boat ride here, but I remember we're here and I'm no longer around my brother, and I missed him. And so I didn't get to see him very much. But they moved here in 1964, I believe. And so it was a pretty exciting time to have him over here.
He stayed in St. George?
Yeah, he was raised by my grandparents. Yeah, I don't know why,
yes.
but
they weren't here
I think maybe my mom was pretty inexperienced. I think she was like 14 when she got pregnant, 15 when she had my brother. So I think my grandma was happy to take over. And then she had me, and they didn't give me away though. But yeah, I remember the reunion when they came from St. George. And so, but we had opportunities to go over to St. George. I don't know how old we were. Had to be about 10 when kids were being brought to St. George to get their tonsils removed. And I got excited. I thought, I wasn't excited about getting my tonsils removed, but I was willing to do it to go to St. George. And then my dad wouldn't hear of it. I was so bummed. He wouldn't sign the paperwork to allow them to take our tonsils. He told me, because I kept insisting I wanted to go, but he said no. He said he had a friend named Tommy. I don't know his last name. 8 years old here in St. Paul. He had his tonsils removed. I don't know why, but he died after. He said.
Scary.
Yeah. So he said he wasn't going to have our tonsils removed. So that was the end of that. I remember enjoying going over there.
So you didn't get to go over that time?
Nope.
So Johnny didn't have his removed then over there too?
No. Yep.
And when you came here, did you move right into the house over here that, no, who's in it now? No one, huh? Where John and Kara were? No,
Yeah.
this house. No, the right next to it.
Let's see. The first house I
no, this
recall, I see pictures of me as not even a year old, I think, or maybe around a year old. Maybe we were here for a visit, I don't know, but we were at my Auntie Bunchy's house. That's where Missy lives. That was my Auntie Bunchy's. That's Charlie's biological mother. And she died when Charlie was 2. So my dad took Charlie. And but anyway, I remember seeing pictures of me outside on the porch in like a little high chair, square with the chair in the middle. So I don't know if we're living here at the time, maybe for a while. But yeah, I remember being in where Anna, Marina, and Isaiah live. That's the house I grew up in.
I remember that. I remember going there with you.
Oh, yep. So that's the house I grew up in until I was a teenager. And while I went off to high school, you know, when kids went to high school, they were going to Mount Edgecombe and Chemawa, and I was excited because I had applied for Chemawa as my first choice. Mount Edgecombe was my second. And then I get this letter that I'm going to Kenai. And I go, Kenai? Where did that come from? And I wasn't going to a boarding school. I was going to go to a foster home program. Yeah. So that was kind of a shock. So we ended up, 3 of us there. But before we went, or while we were in Kenai, my parents moved to the house next door where Kara and John Wayne lived. So they were in there when I came home from school in Kenai. And I was not happy there in Kenai. There was 3 of us, Dorothy Shane, Sarah Merculia from St. George, and myself. We were living with family. They were trying this foster parent program to see how it would go, I guess, and I didn't like it. I felt, how do you say it? I missed all the students, you know, because I grew up with so many kids in school. Yeah, so
That was 1 year, or was it?
1 year, my freshman year of high school, I was in Kenai, and Sarah liked it. I don't recall if Dorothy did, but Sarah did. The first people I were with, that I was with, they were nice people, but for some reason I didn't get along with their daughter, who was just a little bit older than me, and I befriended this other couple who had kids younger than me, and so I asked, or they invited me to move in with them. I think I probably talked about how unhappy I was. And so I asked the people I was staying with if it was all right if I moved in with these other people, and they were okay with it, so that's what I ended up doing. So it made it nicer. I really got along with these people.
Did you have to like get permission from somebody to do that?
Probably, yeah.
state,
There was
or-
like, I think Bob Portlock out in Anchorage. I don't know what his title was, but I know he was the one who was like sending students here and there. And so I'm sure I had to get permission from there, but I got to move in with these other people, Bobby and Jim Beliath. They were really nice, and they had 2 little girls. So I did good with them. And what was nice too, because my brother Stephen was a toddler, he was a year old, he was born with a club foot. And so, you know, you ever notice he has a slight limp? The bottom of his foot was turned in all the way to his ankle. And so he had to go through a series of operations, excuse me, to straighten it out. And so they put him in a foster program out in Anchorage, so he stayed with these people. And while he went through all these series of operations, and this family in Kenai, every couple months they would drive me to Anchorage so I could visit my brother. So
Nice.
that was very comforting. I loved that. Yeah. And he would be really happy to see me too. So he was only like, he had to be, I was saying 1, but I think he was more like 2. Yeah. And he was walking. He used to have a little walking cast.
They
when
probably
he was
had to
able
time
to walk.
it when they're at a certain age,
Yeah.
that type of
Yep.
surgery.
Yeah. So that was really nice. It was during winter that we'd take these long drives from Kenai to Anchorage. It used to take, 4 hours, I believe. Yeah, it used to be a long ride, but they were nice and would bring me up there. And I'd visit for a couple hours and then They'd bring me back.
Did you like get to attend the church?
Yes, I loved that little church.
Yeah.
That was, and I used to be bashful about singing too, but the priest would encourage me to sing, so I would sing a little bit.
They had a priest there at the time?
Yes, and I don't recall his name, gee. But it was a cute little church.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's still there. Yeah.
Yeah, I went
Yeah.
by there a few years ago. We drove down to Kenai and we saw it. I was telling my husband about it, about going to school there and seeing that church. Yeah, that was really nice. And we saw by that time, the lady who was my foster mom had passed away. She had lung cancer. But her husband was there and I talked to him and we got to meet up in one of the stores, like the coffee shop. Visited, so that was really nice. I introduced him to Joe.
Is that just, was the, isn't that where not the cemetery, the seminary first was, like Wildwood? It was called Wildwood?
I'm not familiar
Wildwood
with
before
that.
it moved to Kodiak, I think.
Really? I do not know.
Like, that might be the case. Yeah.
That'd be something to look up.
Yeah.
But yeah, I experienced, I think that's the first time I really experienced prejudice was there. And that was one of the reasons why I did not like going to school there. And so when I had come home that summer, I was dreading going back to Kenai. I did not want to go back to Kenai. So I remember, like, after a few weeks of being home, I sent a letter to Bob Portlock in Anchorage and I told him how unhappy I was in Kenai and that my first choice for high school was Chemawa, my second was Mount Edgecombe. I said, if I can't go to one of those schools, I quit. And of course I didn't want to quit, but I did not want to go back to Kenai. And so I waited, and pretty soon kids were talking about, excited about getting ready to leave to Mount Edgecombe. Edgecombe students used to leave first, then Chemawa. And I was starting to feel bad thinking, oh, I'm going to be going back to Kenai. But a week before I was supposed to go back to Kenai, I got the letter that I was accepted to Chemawa. I was so excited. So, and that's where I met my husband.
And you graduated from
I didn't graduate from there, no. So what happened was, I was there my sophomore year, and then my junior year, and it was my junior year that I met Joe, and I should have gone back to Chemawa, but he wanted me to go to Ketchikan. So I did. So I went to Ketchikan. And I found out I had enough credits to graduate in Ketchikan, like kind of early. And the reason I wanted to do that was because I found out I was pregnant. And I thought, So I went to the counselor at the school, and he was kind of rude. That was my second place I had, faced prejudice. But it didn't bother me as bad because I had people I was with who I was with Joe, and we were living with his parents, and I absolutely loved them. But anyway, he says, no, we don't carry that kind of program here. If you want to graduate early, you can go ahead and get a GED. That was his answer to me. So, okay. And my parents wanted us to come up and get married, so Joe and I were talking. We decided that's what we'll do. We'll come up. So I didn't graduate. My senior year, I believe it was January, we came back from Ketchikan, and then we got married in February. So I had Karen in 74. That's when we got married. We got married February of 74, and then Karen was born June 74. And then I started to look into GED. So that's what I did, was in May of 75 was when I got my GED. Yeah. So I was pretty excited about that. That was good.
Well, did you live here after that? Is that when
Yeah,
you,
so we got married in 74 and we moved away in 81. Oh, yeah. But before that, there was a job opening for weather service. And there was myself and 3 guys, myself, Joe, and I forget who the other 2 guys were, but they were interviewing us for that job out there. And one of the things I recall in that interview was they had us make little tiny pin marks on paper, and they told us where to put it, and so that's what we did. And then afterwards, the guy told me I was hired. They picked me, he said, because you put your marks, your pin marks, exactly where they should be. He said that I was accurate. And the reason for that was when we charted the balloon on the graph, as you know, as once we released the balloon, we had to chart it on a graph. And we had to be pretty precise on how we tracked it until it burst. And Willie was great at that, and he was the one who taught me how to track it. It was fun working with him. I worked with him and John Henry.
Did you go for work with weather service when you went to Heidelberg?
No. So I worked for weather service for 3 years, from 76 to 79, and I loved it. To me it was a really good job, but what was so difficult was I had 2 little kids and I was pregnant with the 3rd, and shift work. We had to work 3 shifts, day shift, swing, and midnight shift, and we changed shifts every single week, so it was really hard. Plus, babysitters, it's always been a problem, and it still is. So I had trouble finding babysitters. My mom wasn't willing, I think, to babysit. It was just too tough for her, I think. So there were times when I would get off work at 8 in the morning and Joe would work, and I would stay up all day after working midnight to 8. Then I would stay up all day until he came home at 5. Then I would sleep before I had to go back to work again at midnight. Those were, I think, actually the easiest, but also the toughest because I was so tired. So after a while, it just kind of took its toll. So Joe was working at the time. He was driving truck, and so he encouraged me to quit my job. I hated to, but from being so tired, I didn't want to eat, and I lost weight. I lost a lot of weight. So I ended up quitting. And then before I quit though, we moved to Val and Ludmilla's house, up on that top row. I think you end up with it too. Yeah, I love that little house. We stayed there, and then Joe ended up losing his job. So neither of us had work. We were both, and in 3 months we accumulated bills for fuel and electricity, just the 2 bills, $1,500. So yeah. In the meantime, Joe's brother Percy was the president of Haida Corporation, and he told Joe, "Come down here, I'll get a job for you in the sort yard, operating heavy equipment." So Joe jumped at that. that's how we moved. We ended up moving January of 81. I was so sad when I found out we were going to move, but we had no choice. We had no work.
Mm.
So my mom was a big help, helping me pack up the house, and we sold a bunch of stuff before we moved. And I remember feeling really sad, but I thought to myself, gotta make it good. We spent January, February, March in Ketchikan with Joe's oldest sister, Patsy. We stayed with her. Joe went over to Heidelberg. We were renting his aunt's house, so he was kind of getting it ready. He went over before us. So April 7th, I always remember that's the day your brother died. That's the day we moved to Heidelberg, the rest of us. We moved to Heidelberg that day in April of 81. And we flew on the float plane to Heidelberg, and it was so different for us. And the house we lived in was like substandard. The wires were worn out, and we had to like have extension cords all over the place. It felt like going back in time. And we had no hot water. We had to bathe the kids in the round galvanized tub, and we had oil stove in the kitchen, for cooking. And then it was an oil stove for heating in the living room. So it was really like stepping back in time. Oh no, I take that back. We didn't have oil stove in the living room. We had a wood stove. And I had no idea how to use a wood stove. Joe,
Did you learn fast?
yeah, I eventually learned. But before I did learn how, Joe would have the heat going. He'd check it before he went to work. He used to have to be in logging. He was going to work 5 in the morning. And so if it went out and it was nice out, it was warmer outside than it was in the house. So I'd take the kids out and I'd let them play out. It'd be warmer. By then we had Algie, and he was 18 months when we moved down there. No, Karen was 6. David was 4. Almost 4. He was 3. Yeah. But it was good though. I learned how to use the wood stove, and then I worked in the cold storage, and so I got to know more people. So it was good.
At what point did you decide to pursue your present work?
Oh yeah. So I was working in the preschool or Head Start, RoCap Head Start program down there. I did that, I think, for 9 years. I got that job that fall. We moved there in 81. Actually, it wasn't a job yet. I was just volunteering. And then after a few years, I wasn't happy working there, just because of staff, I think, a couple of them. I felt like I couldn't do anything right. And then I found out the job for health aid was opened up. And so I went up there and I asked about the job, but the opening had closed the day before. And I said, I have 3 jobs. I worked in the grocery store. I worked for this one lady who had a gift shop. And then I had the health aid job. The Head Start. I was working for Head Start then. And I said, I never once saw a notice, no bulletin anywhere. I said I go to the grocery store, I go to the post office every day, and I never saw anything posted. And it turns out they only posted it at the city office. And I said, I go there once a month to pay my bill. I said, if I'd known, I would have signed up. So they told me, they called me after I had talked to them about an hour later, and they said, they want you to go down and sign up for the job. So I ran down to the clinic and I signed up. And about an hour after that, I got a call. You've been hired. I couldn't believe it. I was so excited. This happened while I was on Christmas break for Head Start. And that summer before, I joined the EMS. And so I was ETT. And so when Search asked me, they were going to send me early for training for ETT, and I said, I'm already an ETT, and so they were excited. They said, that's great. So I started working January 15th of 95 for Search as a health aide, and I went off to training. I gave my 2 weeks notice to the Head Start, and I started there. So that was the beginning of my health career.
Did you keep working and then continue being trained and educated?
Yeah, so one of the things that was nice about working as a health aide was every spring in April we would go to Anchorage, for a health aid forum. And the guy from Search who worked in Sitka, would send so many health aides a year, so I got to go to that several times. And with encouragement from the Health Aid Forum, they encouraged us to take classes. So I started taking classes. My first one was medical terminology, which I really enjoyed. And it was a by phone class. We weren't doing anything by internet yet. So I started at that, and then I was taking English and anatomy and physiology over the years. And then I found out in one of the health aid forums that I went to, that I only needed like two more classes to do. One more English and one more science. So I took those, and then I was able to apply for the PA program. Yeah. And so when I was taking those classes, I was able to, because our kids were growing up. Karen, Dave, and Algie were out of the home, and Greg went to his Mount Edgecombe. So there was nobody at home, so I was able to focus on classes. And he graduated in 2009 from Mount Edgecombe, and that's the year that the MedX PA program sent a whole bunch of us to Anchorage for interview at the end of 2009. It was in December. And there was 120 of us for interview up there. And I was amazed. And they just kind of rotated us through interviews, like 2-3 of us at a time. And I remember them asking me about, why I wanted to be a PA, and I let them know I've been a health aide for several years, and I've been encouraged. People would say, you should go to school and become a PA. I said, so that's what I'm trying to do. And they asked me where I thought I would work when I became a PA. I said, I want to go back to Heidelberg and work there as a PA. I said, and also go to my hometown where I grew up. That was the selling point for MedX PA program. They wanted providers who want to work in rural. And first they told me, or they told everybody they would let us know that we should hear by January if we get accepted into the program, that we would get a letter. Well, I got a phone call before December 31st. So it was within days of coming home after I was interviewed. They said I was hired. I was accepted into the program, not hired. And so my first reaction was, oh my God, what did I just do? I immediately, I was excited, but I was scared. And that guy told me that what sold me was that I wanted to work in a rural setting, and that's why they wanted me. Yeah. So I was pretty excited. I couldn't believe it. And so I got started. We started March of 2010, and that's the month my grandma died. And it was hard. I know I found out she was medevac to Anchorage. They let me know. So before I started the program, they explained to us we were going to start online with computer online, and that it was going to be pretty intense and we could not go behind. And so, knowing my grandma was in Anchorage, I went up to visit her. I went to visit her and kind of like said my goodbyes, because I knew once I started, I thought about it. Internet here was not very good, and I had to have good internet to do my class. We couldn't go behind. They told us if we went behind, we would have to drop out. So that's why I didn't come home for Grandma's funeral when she passed.
Was she awake and
Yeah.
coherent?
Yes, she was.
Nice.
I was able to visit with her. I spent, I want to say, about 5 days in Anchorage, and I was visiting her every day. Yeah.
I did stop in to see her. We were passing through, heading out of Alaska, and she was there, so I went to the hospital to see her. And I don't think anybody was there at the time, family-wise. I just sat with her, but at that point, she wasn't awake.
Oh.
But I just wanted to, just be there with her for a little bit. She's very, very, she was already tiny, but she was tinier.
Yeah, she was.
That's wonderful. So, is there any connection to her being a health care person as well in her?
There wasn't. No, there really wasn't, but I was pretty excited when I had thought about it. When I was in the PA school in Anchorage, the MedX PA program had several places that they taught, and they were called satellite classes. There was Spokane, Seattle, Yakima, and Anchorage was new. We were second year students is what we were called. It was only the second year that they were doing it in Anchorage, and they gave us option of where we wanted to be, and I said I want to be in Anchorage. I wanted to be near home, and I absolutely loved it because I saw people from here, from Heidelberg, Prince of Wales Island, Ketchikan, Anchorage, and met people I went to high school with because we were in class right next to the hospital. And this one lady who used to be a health aide too, she got in the program. And her and I, once in a while, we'd go to the hospital and eat in the cafeteria. And on our way, I'd run into people. And she said one time, Anna, there's never a time when we're going to eat lunch that there's always somebody you know. She said, you know a lot of people.
Where was she from?
She was living in Anchorage, yeah. And she was a health aide in, where is it? Outside, Nikolai, in Nikolai, near McGrath, yeah. So that's where she was living, and then had moved to Anchorage for school. So that was pretty exciting.
So how long was that for you? How long did it take for you to go through?
2 years. Yeah, we went through it 2 years. The first year was all classroom didactic. And then the second year we did clinical rotations. So I went to different places and saw patients. Yeah, so that was really a lot of fun. And I felt like, I would worry, but I would say prayers, and it seemed like always doors were open for me. I chose, and a lot of people, they had to worry about where to stay and pay for expenses of, where they stayed. Well, I did all my clinicals in Southeast, and then my last one was here. Yeah. They said we had to do a underserved area for one of the clinicals. And I said, St. Paul Island, and my advisor was talking to the other one. They looked at each other and they said, we'll check on that. And then they go, yep, that'll work. St. Paul is considered an underserved area. So I was able to come here for my last one. So I was pretty excited. Each one was about a month long. Cloac was the longest, I believe, at 3 or 4 months. I forget. But I had...
Did you ever work in Heidelberg?
Yeah, I worked as a health aide there for years.
Okay. Mm-hmm. No, I mean like after you became...
Yes, I worked there for 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
And then I told Joe, I says, I want to try to apply for St. Paul. And Amos, when he found that out, him and Karen were excited. And when he heard there was an opening here, he told me, he says, apply, there's an opening. Mm-hmm. So I did. And it turns out I was here. And anyway, I was here visiting on vacation. It was, I believe, January. Oh, we came here for Christmas. 2016. Yeah. And then 2017 was when I started. They had me fill out paperwork. They interviewed me here at the clinic. Dave Preschke was the PA working here at the time. And I forget the lady who was working for South Central Foundation out of Anchorage. But anyway, Heather Gecki. So they interviewed me here, and they wanted to know when I could start. And I said, well, my contract isn't up until May of 2017. So they got me here. They hired me May 22nd, and I spent a month in Anchorage and came here in June. Yeah, signed on for 2 years. And after working here for 18 months, I told Joe, I said, I don't feel ready to go, because it felt like a year and a half went by so fast, it felt like only a year. And he said, well, sign up again. So the next morning I ran. When I went to work at the clinic, I was telling April, I want to sign on again.
Do they like, is it, I don't know, is it like a rule, like those time frames of 2-year increments?
Yeah, you could kind of they gave me a 2-year contract, and then there's itinerants too, and they can kind of give their own time of how long. And so when after my third 2-year contract, I was feeling sad about leaving, and one of the providers said, sign on as an itinerant. You could make your own time. And I thought, yeah, I'm going to do that. And I feel like I'm easing out, so I'm going back and forth.
You're
this
like
past
a fur
year.
seal.
Yeah, with the season. So I told SCF 2 months on and 2 months off, but I think I've been here longer than 2 months at a time. And shorter in Heidelberg, I'd go down there and then come back. So
when you go to Heidelberg, you're not working. Your
I'm not.
work is just here.
Yeah, I'm just working here.
Yeah.
And so this is going to be my last rotation when I leave here Thursday, and then I come back September. I was saying September 2nd, but I found out my son, our youngest son Greg, who's working as an apprentice to a master carver from Canada, a Haida carver. They're doing a pole in Craig, and they're going to raise that pole August 31st. And so I want to be there for that.
Yeah.
And then we spend like 2-3 days in Anchorage shopping, getting stuff to bring up here. So I think I'll end up coming back like around the 4th or 5th of September. Yeah. Then I'll
like
stay till October 31st, and then I'm gonna retire. Yeah, I'm excited. I feel ready to retire. I love being home, and I love working with the people here. I feel so blessed to have been able to come home and work here. But the downside is emergencies with people I love. Those are hard. And it kind of takes a toll. When I was in the emergency, when I was on call and got called in for my niece and my great nephew, those were super hard. I don't want to do that again. Those are the hardest. So I feel like, yeah, it is time to retire. And then I told my husband, I said, when I retire, I want to work with the elders down there. He goes, you are an elder. I said, I know. Oh my goodness.
Do you think there's, I remember, I hear other people say the same thing, like going and, my dad used to say, the people that can't, how did he say, doctors, priests, I want to say police officers, and I felt like there was another one. You're always in alert.
Yeah.
And that it's hard, and I think he might have said he wanted to be a priest in St. George. The church transferred him here. And just sometimes it seems like those things are set up because it might be hard for you if you're in your own community and you experience experienced the trials and tribulations or traumas. And I know my niece Jama, that was the same thing for her. Like you could only take so much of going through that and being in service in that way.
Yeah.
Do you see, is there any, because if I think back to before we even had health care like we do, and you had, let's say, 300 or 400 years ago in our own indigenous community, and there's a boat that flipped over and people died, and there's people they had to take care of. What did they have to help them heal from that? I don't know that that's answerable. Like with going through those, going through what you have gone through with your family members and being there in that emergency room, you ever have any feeling about what would help people go through that are taken care of?
They do have what they call people who come in who specialize in helping people talk through what they went through.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I'm trying to think of what it's called. I'm forgetting at the moment.
Yeah, I know I forget what it's called too.
Mm-hmm.
And it always feels like those are programs they say if anybody in the community wants to see this person. I forget but they also provide it for providers as well?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, they have the people come in and they encourage them to talk, no judgment passed or anything. It's just being able to say, talk about what we did and maybe what we could have done that would have been better, It's just slipping my mind. Sorry, I'm tired.
Yeah, the amata.
Yeah. I've been awake a long time.
Yeah. So.
But they have that where they can talk. It's just slipped my mind. Can't think of it. But one thing I wanted to mention, yeah, I will. One thing I wanted to mention was when I was in school in Anchorage, my mom came out and visited with me for a while, and she brought Kiana with her. Kiana was just a little girl. And I learned from my mom at the time that her grandma, my grandma's mom, was like a midwife in St. George. She delivered babies. And she got to understand sometime when a baby was breech, and she was able to turn them. I thought that was pretty awesome, amazing, like, wow.
Stefan's wife.
Yes,
yeah.
Yes, she was Stefanida. She was, I think that was her name. I never knew her. She died before my parents even got married. They got married in 1954, and then Johnny was born in 1954 in August.
And your dad's dad was Anton Malavia.
Yeah.
And his mom, Alexandra. Anton's wife's name was Alexandra, I think.
I think so, yeah. Yeah. I called her Acha. I knew her as Acha.
So you got to meet her. But not him?
Not him. Anton, my dad's dad, died and my dad was the youngest. He was not even a year old yet when his dad burned in that old rec hall.
Oh.
He died in the fire. Yeah. So he never knew his dad either. Yeah. I knew Fedora, Ted Kachutin. That's who my Acha married. And I found out from Barbara, Barbara Freitas, that was her grandpa. And so I was excited to learn that. So I started calling her my cousin. Hi, my cousin. I was excited to learn that.
What could you share a little bit about, like, maybe from the time that you grew up here and then you moved away in '81, and then you were away for those decades, and then coming and living here? Any, like, did you want to share anything about the changes you saw from
Yeah,
between those times?
I try to think about, I was thinking about the 70s. I was busy raising our little kids, it seems like. And we moved away. Like, I don't ever recall us doing, like, Aleut dancing. And I know your dad, Father Michael, was teaching Aleut language in school. But I was not exposed to any of that, not to the art of, where they were. Mary wasn't doing that, I remember. Wasn't
she
doing
live
art
here for a while too. 'Cause
yeah.
they moved into Anchorage.
Yes.
Yeah.
So native art wasn't that strong. I know Doris did basket weaving, but there was no time for me to do that, with little kids. So I didn't get into any culture, no native, Aleut culture. So after we had moved away and I see these starting like in the 80s, I used to think, wow, I wish we could have done that. But I got into Haida culture, I worked in Head Start, and the women, there was 2-3 women elders who came into the class, and they would sing. They would teach Haida words and songs. And so I always say I know more Haida than I do Nungen, because I was around it for several years. And then I made regalia for our kids in Heidelberg. And they participated in that, which I thought was cool. I thought that was really nice. So that was the difference between living here before we moved away and then coming back and seeing your, teaching the Aleut language and songs. I think that is really awesome. I always wish I was able to participate in it. But it was during work, so I couldn't really get away. And so, yeah, I feel sad about that part, not being able to learn my language. Because I remember my dad telling me when we were growing up, like as a teenager, he used to say he didn't want us to suffer what he did when he was a child, when he was going to school, how they would spank them, spank the back of their legs with sticks or spank their hands for speaking Aleut language. They were forced to stop and learn English. He didn't want us to go through that, so he didn't want us to learn our language. So that was his mentality. And so I didn't think anything about it until I went to high school and realized I missed out on a lot, because a lot of the Yupik Eskimos and other natives, they all spoke their language to each other. But we were lucky if we could say words, you know?
Say ananga.
Yeah, that all I could say was a few words, and like I could hear my grandparents and my mom and dad. Actually, my mom didn't speak very much herself, but she understood it. But my dad and my grandparents would speak the language, and they would. I didn't know what they were saying. Yeah. So.
Did your brother Johnny pick it up?
I believe he understood. He got to understand it. Yeah, because he was living here after for a while after, and got married. I think from then he learned a lot. Yeah, so I never really picked up on it. So that's the sad part for me, was I don't know my language. I don't know much of the culture. Yeah.
So looking back over your lifetimes, anything you want to share, like what you're grateful for? You just shared, like, darn, I didn't get to learn my language. Any regrets?
Yeah.
Any happy moments?
I see there's been a lot of change. Like, there's the ceiling stopped while I was away. We were in Heidelberg when it quit, and the government left the island in '83. And I remember hearing that, that people were worried about what we're gonna do, and then fishing started. So I feel like that was very helpful. And I feel like one of the things I appreciate is that nowadays drugs is like so rampant, just, and I feel like here it's not so bad. Drug abuse is not so bad here. I've seen it worse in other places, and it did get pretty bad in Heidelberg too. And I feel fortunate that, I grew up seeing alcohol. I grew up with it. I never did like it, and I feel lucky that I never liked alcohol. I didn't have a problem with it. Cigarettes was another thing. When I quit smoking in '85, in September 25th, I was smoking 3 packs a day, and I was miserable. And what helped me was the Bible. That's one thing I loved about Heidelberg, was there was these elders who studied the Bible, that we'd have Bible classes, and I started going, and I loved it. And learned how to, I feel like it taught me to pray. And when I prayed, I ran out of cigarettes that day during lunch. And lunchtime, the grocery store closed, so there was no way to get cigarettes. That's when I knelt down and I asked God to give me the strength to quit. And a whole week went by, and Joe said, "Did you quit smoking?" And I had to think for a few seconds, and I said, "A whole week ago." So I went from prayer to him asking me, "Did you quit smoking?" before I realized, I never thought of a cigarette. I quit cold turkey. That was a miracle from God that I quit like that. I was so sick of it. Yeah, I literally chain smoked. I'd light up a cigarette, that before I snuff one out, I'd light up another. That's how I smoked, and was so miserable. I know, like, for about 6 or 7 years I wanted to quit, and I feel fortunate that I was able to quit, and I never took it up again. And I like to share that with people, and I feel very happy that, it's not because of me, but many people here have quit drinking, and there's several who have quit tobacco use. I'm so proud of people who have done that. It's like a new awakening. Like, we realize we don't need alcohol to have fun. We don't need drugs to have fun. That's what I feel like is awesome.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Proud of
great.
my people. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's going to be hard to move. I feel torn. I'm excited. I love Heidelberg, and that's our home. We're going to have our home there. But at the same time, I'm leaving my home I grew up with, and my people. I'm going to miss the fresh air.
Yeah.
Wish I could bottle it up. Miss the people. Yeah, it's hard. And then our daughter and her family, our granddaughter, and now our great-grandbabies who I've become close with.
Yeah.
But I tell myself, I remind myself, focus on the good. I've been blessed to live here for 7 years. I've been able to, I love bike riding, and it's been wonderful to bike ride here. It's a stress relief. This is what I do when I ride. I got this as a gift from Clara some years ago. Go Bible. I like to listen to that and ride, and I just love it.
These read passages or
It's the Bible.
Yeah.
That's the whole Bible.
The whole
Yeah,
thing.
and what I love is I can pick, different books of the Bible to read. I mean, to listen to.
it.
Yeah,
Wow.
and I feel like I don't have to worry about heavy traffic. It's just peaceful, and I get my heart going, and I find, like, when I haven't rode my bike for a while, I get tired real easy, but it doesn't take too many times, and I feel like I get my wind and my strength back. So I was very happy to have been able to go to Southwest.
Is that your winter bike ride over there?
Uh,
Winter time?
no, Joe got that.
Oh.
I've never used it. Yeah.
Yeah, I was really amazed because I made it out there. We saw you riding your bicycle. I was in Chucky's truck. And then you made it all the way out to Southwest on Father's Day. It was
Yeah.
Like, wow.
Yeah, that was an awesome ride.
Yeah.
And yep,
Awesome.
it took me an hour and 20 minutes to get out there. And I wasn't racing, I was just going and biking and listening to my Go Bible. I just feel so blessed that I got to be here with everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember you when you were little, really young, and I had Karen, and she was like newborn. I remember you used to be amazed with her.
I was, and I always like to recall when she would be upstairs and how fast she would climb to look over in the choir loft, get up the steps. That she was just,
Oh my gosh!
she was
yeah,
fast.
she was. She always
was.
was.
Yeah.
Really fast.
It's probably one of the things looking forward to going to church and seeing Karen scramble for things.
She was 2 when my dad died. She was a week from turning 3, and he died June 10th of 77, and her birthday was on the 16th. But anyway, he used to love taking her to church. like right after she got baptized, he wanted to bring her. I'm sure the Krusnas did, but I remember when I finally got to go to church after my 40 days, he's holding her like right here, and she's like month old, and she's looking all over. And he was like so proud to show her off. He was just so tickled to have a little granddaughter.
And she was light. I think I remember
Mm-hmm.
when you picked
Yeah.
her up, she was very light.
Yeah, she was so little. She was crawling. We lived in Oregon for a while. Joe was going to college, and she was 4 months old when we had the apartment we were in had shag carpeting, and she was pulling herself up those steps, hanging onto those shag, the carpet. 4 months old, and she was 5 months old when she stood up by the coffee table.
Wow.
Yeah, and she was 9 months. She started taking steps at 9 months old, and the day she turned 10 months old, she took off walking. She was pretty fast. Yeah.
1 girl and 3 boys.
I was thinking about Joe. He would probably have good stories to talk about sealing. My dad was the foreman on the island when Joe came here. In 73, the summer of 73 was the first time he came here. We were hiking out southwest, way out there, walking. What's that hill up there? Rush Hill. We walked up there, and he was asking, what year did I come here? And I said, in 73. And he smiled down at me. He goes, that's been 50 years. I said, wow. Yeah. 50 years ago. Yeah, that was pretty awesome. So he did sealing here. He worked at the byproducts plant, and he used to take when they scraped all the fat off the skins, he took the dump truck and dumped it. Yeah, he was the one to dump it. So we started talking about our golden anniversary, and I would say, God willing, we'll make it. And at first I used to always say, I want to get married in Hawaii. And then pretty soon we changed it to Anchorage so that our kids could all be there. And they were. So we celebrated our golden anniversary in Anchorage, which was a lot of fun.
That was February, right?
Yeah, February 10th.
Yeah.
And what was so cool is that Joe wore his suit that he got married in, and I wore my wedding dress.
Wow.
Yeah.
I remember on the plane you were taking out your cake top.
Yeah.
We traveled out on the plane together.
That's right. And by the time we got to Anchorage, it kind of broke up. I had it in, of all things, a Ziploc bag, and of course we're traveling with Bella too. That's why I think it got all busted up. But thankfully, Karen and Amos glued it all together and fixed it, and we were able to use it on and Karen made the cake. Yeah, that was so cool. That was the best.
Wow. Yeah. It's good to visit with you. I was telling Garrett how I couldn't remember if you came over from St. George or when it was. I know we moved over in 64.
Okay.
When my dad became a priest here.
Mm-hmm.
And then I just remember, I couldn't remember if you were already here. It was like August, I think, we came over.
Yeah, I was here.
You were
I
already
was
here.
living here. Mm-hmm.
And I always felt, because I knew of you on St. George, or I remember, even if I was young, I remember that, and I always was happy to see you because I knew you were from where I was from. Coming over from St. George and being here, it's like, oh, somebody I know.
Yeah, I used to be happy to spend time and play with you. I used to think you had the prettiest house.
Was that Priest House? Which one?
Yeah.
St. George or St.
No,
Paul?
no, here.
Oh,
Yeah. And then
yeah.
I was happy when your mom gave us holy bread.
My parents, my mom and dad, I think they lived in a house. My dad fixed up a house in St. George. Was the became the fire station,
Oh, wow.
and he built steps in it. And Christopher Melovansky must have come over and said, "Whoever built these steps built them for cows. They're big." But then my parents got the. First, they lived with my uncle Auntie Ella. Then they had their own house, and then they got the brick house.
Oh,
And my
yeah.
mom
I
was
remember them
so
living there.
happy to have a brick house. And then my dad decided to become priest, and the government kicked them out of that brick house. So they had to move into the priest house. And my
Oh,
mom,
my gosh.
she said she was so sad because it was like dark. It was a monk priest, or Father Theodosius. Father Theodosi lived there. And she said it was just dingy and dark colors. And so my dad fixed it up, and she was happy. And then they moved her over here. And she said, same thing over here. It was like a dark house. Yeah.
I remember when your dad retired. I don't remember what year that was, but I happened to come up for a visit.
85.
Okay,
Yeah.
and they had a reception for him at Rec Hall, and I made the cake. I remember I'd always be happy to see him, and then the fact that he was retiring, I remember I walked into the room, which is now the city office. It was like just kind of like a storage room at the time. I just had to go in there and cry. I thought, oh, he's retiring.
Yeah.
Yeah, he.
Yeah. Yeah. It's good you'll be back in September.
Yeah, I'm
So,
glad. It's gonna be hard,
It's
I
not
know,
too
but
far
I
away.
gotta remind myself.
Yeah.
I gotta remind myself, you know, think the good things. You know, I'll be able to settle down in a. We actually don't have a home yet in Heidelberg. We gave it to our son, but we'll stay there. And then I think we're gonna end up buying some kind of a home. We want a little house, no big house. Just something little. We have little property on the beach, and we also, the house that he's living on is kind of up on the hill, and it's big property. If we wanted, we could even put our house there too, because it's such big property. But we have beach property right on the, right by the beach, and right where the, not boat harbor, but, they have,
It's like a launch, a boat launch, or
yeah, you know how down here the harbor where all the boats sit, our property is right by the boat dock. And so it's nice to hear when we had our trailer on that property. It would be nice because it's light out like 3 a.m, and guys used to go down to their boat early and work on their boat, prepare it for fishing, doing the copper painting and whatnot. And I used to like to hear them talking, laughing, hearing the eagles, the bird, different birds. And then as the summer goes along, towards the end of fishing, you could hear the fish jumping. It sounded kind of like slow popcorn. Slow popping popcorn, plop, plop, plop. It's so cool. I love that. So, I gotta remind myself to focus on stuff like that. And then hopefully Karen and Latasha and them will come visit us. Yeah. But it's... And then I got to go to church and sing. I feel lucky. I recorded a bunch of services, so I'll at least have that. Yeah. And That's what I enjoy.
Your dad sang in the choir?
He was a choir conductor for a while. Yeah. After Perfina
Okay.
wasn't any, let's see, how did that go? He died, and my dad and Steve Lekanoff were conductors.
Mm.
Yeah, choir
Or
conductors.
he left, I think.
Went to Unalaska.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So
Yeah.
they were choir conductors for a while.
When did you get in the choir? Was
In
it?
high school.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
You just, because I remember I remember how I got it was like the selection. You'll be in the choir. You'll be in the choir. And
Oh,
I don't know if that happened all the time.
they were encouraging us.
Mhm.
And, you know, Joanne Whitman used to let us sing in school all the
Mhm.
time. We loved singing. I didn't really know the music. I didn't know how to read it, but I loved trying to sing.
Mhm.
And so I was bashful, though, and your grandpa, Perfina, I can't hear you. So I'd get kind of scared. I'd be scared to sing.
Yeah, he was the conductor when I got in the choir, and my memories are of. I think about the same time Helen and Anna Pletnikoff got in, as well as maybe Becky Pachi. There's myself and Carol Swetzoff. Probably all got selected about the same time.
Oh, wow.
And so there was Heritina Kachutin and Sophia Stepton and Alice Filimonov.
Mm-hmm.
They would
Altos,
all,
huh?
yeah,
Mhm.
and they would like stand behind us and point at everything, and like you couldn't like go sit in the bell room or anything
Yeah.
like that. They'd make sure you're paying attention. So sometimes if one of them older bossy ladies weren't there, it's like, ah, a little relaxed. Could go sit in the bell room for a little while.
And I sang with Anna and Mary. Who else?
Nellie,
Mm-hmm.
is there one too?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Nellie Olson.
She
Yeah.
had a beautiful voice.
Yep.
Yeah.
I always love listening to that one where they sang that in Aleut. Melanie Prokopiev recorded it
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
in the
Yeah.
late 70s, I think, or
Mm.
early 80s. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, they're hoping to be in Unalaska in August. Phil and I have an anniversary, but I don't know how grand or not it's going to be, but they want to have a service there to honor Father Benjamin of St. Innocenty
Oh, wow.
for his 200 years from when he first went there. And so I know George is trying to figure out what's going on. I keep saying, well, summer people are busy. We know how it is because we're like that too. And I said, let's just go. So we've been wanting to go to some speaker gathering but COVID happened, and we kept requesting funding to do that. Finally, I said, let's just go to some place where there'll be language. And I think they want to try to have as much of that service in Unamtunu as possible.
Oh, nice.
So
Wow.
we have a couple of young ladies that are singers. They like singing. We hear singing every day. And I just proposed to them, would they like to come? And one of them has to go to university about that time, so she's kind of stuck between. Her mom already got the ticket,
Oh, wow.
so we're trying to figure it out. And housing there's not cheap, so we need to
I
find a
bet.
place now.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
And I just basically said, Phil, want to do this? It's like right after our anniversary. How about we just... So I'm going on my own. We're just going to go ahead and... Phil and I are just going to go
Nice.
spend 5 days there. come
That
back.
sounds awesome. Wow.
Hopefully the berries are ripe by then, because that's like berry holiday time. It's on August 18 is the celebration in Unalaska.
Oh. All right.